Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Da 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 na 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 da na 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 da na 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 da 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 na da da na 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 na.
The power of the power of yes, yes.
The Acolyte. The show we all loved from the bottom of our hearts. The show with such heart and passion put into it that no fan, no matter how critical, can be negative towards the show. TV is so brilliant, so unbelievably beautiful, so enjoyable to watch that it just makes me want to. No, wait, nope, wrong script. Sorry, let me do that again. Here we are. Bread, tea, pasta, knives for stabbing oneself. Oh, wait, no, that's the shopping list. Just give me a minute. Okay, finally, here we are, the correct script, I think. So, The Acolyte. What to even say? The hype, the hope going into it was at an all-time low. And coming out of it, we feel probably worse. Worse than The Rise of Skywalker, worse than The Book of Boba Fett, worse than anything Star Wars has produced to date. Filled with cameos that were supposed to generate hype, but just made you even less excited because of how they were going to it up further. Filled with inconsistent characters who changed their entire motives, personalities and goals at the toss of a coin, and filled with whatever she is. And for me, maybe for many others as well, it's not so much about the actual content of the series and how absolutely it is, but equally everything we don't see, behind the scenes, the way that the actors, showrunners and everyone else talked about it, about Star Wars, as if they didn't even know what Star Wars was, and they were making their own solitary show that had nothing to do with one of the most recognizable, iconic and universally loved movie franchises of all time.
I hate my life. I hate your life too.
And yeah, whilst you could argue that the show had its moments, though very few, it also had so many lows that these actually horrible scenes were completely overridden. And like I said, the major contributor as to why The Acolyte was so bad is, in my opinion, the lack of thought, the lack of care, the lack of passion put into it. Made by a woman who cares more about boasting her queerness and how it's so important to her filmmaking than the actual IP of Star Wars, and a group of actors so intent on being as stupid as possible.
Yes, yes.
Look and see the Anakin blowing up the Death Star. Look and see the Anakin blowing up the Death Star. See the Anakin blowing up the Death Star.
Of course things are going to go wrong when you have a group of blithering idiots like these making Star Wars show. A group of blithering idiots who think that R2-D2 is a lesbian and that nerds are gay. Yeah, they really did say that. And ever since the beginning of The Acolyte, there's been one thing that I think best describes the general consensus around it. As a TV series, it's not great. The dialogue, the characters, the plot convenience, all of that is abysmal at best. But as a Star Wars show, it is downright dreadful. It retcons parts of the story essential to the plot of the prequel trilogy with the idea of the Sith, comes up with its own thing called the Thread, which is apparently some branch off of the Force, and decides that Anakin Skywalker, literal space Jesus in the original Star Wars movies, was really not that important and decided to make two twins who are exactly the same, being that they were both conceived without a father, apparently from the Force. Or should I say, the Thread.
Yes, yes.
And so what I want to do today in this video is dive deeper into season 1, the first and hopefully the only season of the show, and dissect each episode, discussing where it went wrong and how it went wrong. But before that, there's something that I do want to talk about quickly. Because as a big fan of numerous film and book franchises and a dedicated member of various different fandoms, generally I adhere to a fundamental rule when consuming any form of media, and that is to never judge a book by its cover. Because approaching a movie with preconceived negativity, thinking it's bound to be terrible, or starting a book with the mindset that it will be unenjoyable, sets you up for disappointment all the time. The same applies to turning on your TV or launching Netflix with the expectation that what you're about to watch will be subpar. Even if your motivation for engaging with the content is, for example, for a YouTube review or at the behest of friends, it's crucial to approach it with an open mind and a clean slate. This mindset is essential for deriving literally any enjoyment from the media you're consuming. Otherwise, you will inevitably find reasons to criticize it. And of course, a portion of this responsibility lies with the creators, the marketers and promoters of films, TV series, books, and games. Their task is to captivate the audience, sparking interest and creating a sense of urgency to experience the content. And unfortunately, I can definitely say that the promotional campaign for The Acolyte was perhaps the most ineffective I've ever encountered. It managed to alienate almost every single Star Wars fan with a modicum of common sense, effectively turning its entire audience against themselves. I mean, just listen to this.
True, but
Yeah.
in my world, nerds are gay.
Okay.
Well, it seems I'm learning something about myself today. Thank you, Amanda Stenberg,
Both
for that
nerds are gay.
eye-opening piece of information. I mean, I'm probably
Was this the fun
pretty
element
big
of
nerd, the biggest I know, and I'm pretty straight as far as I know. But hey, nerds are gay, so that's that, I guess.
outward?
I think it's canon that R2D2 is a lesbian.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really did say that. But you understand my point. From the outset, The Acolyte managed to alienate its audience completely, and this is not helped by the show's persistent delays. Consequently, it is surprising that even before the premiere of the first episode, it was already being review bombed on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not surprising at all. The Acolyte became its own worst enemy, and the sentiment about not judging a book by its cover was completely disregarded in this case for myself. The only other shows I recall feeling this way for were Rings of Power and the movie Madam Web, both of which, in my opinion, deserve the negative reception due to their genuinely terrible quality. In summary, The Acolyte sabotaged itself before it even had a chance to succeed, which is a significant, albeit not the sole reason, for the early backlash it received. Another undeniable factor contributing to the widespread disdain, openly acknowledged by the actors and showrunners, is the perceived wokeness of the series. While this isn't a point I wish to delve into deeply, as it's not my primary concern with Acolyte and I'm not too worried about the whole woke side of things, it is worth a brief mention. Because diversity in TV series and movies is commendable and it's generally uncontroversial, but the thing is, when it becomes the primary selling point of a show, overshadowing other elements to the extent that it disrupts the law, it becomes problematic. The Acolyte predictably falls into this category. If you watch interviews with the cast and creator Leslye Headland, it's evident that this is theirs and her favourite topic, aside from discussing themselves and how Star Wars has ostensibly transformed their lives. All they want to talk about is how woke it is and everything.
Look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star possibly killed millions and
I'm telling you, that kid thought he was turning up to a Nickelodeon audition or something. But back to my point, you can see what I'm trying to say. The show is so heavily encumbered by its woke agenda that it overshadows all other aspects, becoming the primary topic of discussion. And don't even get me started on episode 3. We'll get to that later actually. In summary, it is glaringly apparent, both before and during the show releasing, that The Acolyte was produced with a distinct lack of passion, genuine care, or thoughtful consideration. Instead, it feels like a mere exercise in spending a $180 million budget without achieving any impressive results. $180 million. Where is all that money going with this show? And this lack of genuine effort is easily the biggest reason why fans have turned against the creators and Disney from the outset. Unlike George Lucas's heartfelt dedication to Star Wars, Peter Jackson's care for The Lord of the Rings, Chris Columbus's nurturing of Harry Potter, or Denis Villeneuve's devotion to Dune, the team behind The Acolyte appears primarily driven by their own agendas and maximizing profits. It's all about money for them, rather than a love for the source material. And this attitude extends to the cast and crew, contributing to the show's negative reception from day one. And in fact, it got so bad, Disney actually started blaming the fans, saying that we were the reason The Acolyte had garnered so much hate and why no one liked it. Maybe actually produce a good show, Disney. Yeah, the whole thing is utterly bizarre. But now that we've talked about that for a while, let's actually get into the show itself and start from episode 1, Lost/Found. So, the first episode of the most unanticipated Star Wars show starts questionably. The opening scroll essentially tells us that this takes place around 80 to 90 years before the Phantom Menace and 100 years before the Empire. But one single assassin seeks revenge, and we open with this mysterious figure who enters a bar to find a Jedi just sitting there, chilling with a few friends. All of this so far has been fine, but then this happens.
Attack me with all your strength.
Oh, okay, seriously, who on earth wrote this script? Because that is some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard. Attack me with all your strength. Really? Anyways, moving on, mysterious assassin woman and mysterious Jedi woman start up a bar fight, and long story short, the Jedi dies. Just dies. Now, excuse me if, but after seeing Sabine Wren survive a lightsaber stab clean through her middle, and see Reva get stabbed twice, once by Anakin when she was a kid, and once by Darth Vader in the actual Kenobi series, it really does make a simple metal knife to the heart seem a very mundane way for a Jedi to go out. But hey, it is nice to see that Disney acknowledge that a weapon through the heart or through the torso will actually kill you. Although it's not so nice to realize that in this world that Disney have concocted, a single tiny metal knife is more lethal than a lightsaber. Moving on, because it's quite early to be getting caught on things like these, we meet our true protagonist for the series, Osha, who is actually a mechanic who looks exactly like the assassin. Now, she is a mechanic who puts out fires. What? She puts out fires in space.
You serious?
No, seriously, no, really seriously. Only a couple of minutes after we meet her, she's putting out fires on the ship in the literal vacuum of space. Well, let's leave that now because we have bigger fish to fry. Because guess what? This apparent Star Wars series is actually the second coming of the Parent Trap, but in space, and with a whole lot more Jedi and flashy colours. Because Osha, our main character, actually has a twin sister who is the assassin who we saw at the start of the episode. But we don't actually learn that till later, so let's continue playing on with the mystery. Going on, Osha is taken into custody because apparently she is the killer of the Jedi. You know, the one we saw at the start of the episode. You know, get it, because she's a twin. You get it, because her twin sister did it, but they look the same. Get it? Now, how these two Jedi managed to find her so quickly, with only a name and a face to go by, is insane. But let's not get held up on the small issues, because it doesn't get much better from there. Before we continue on, I just want to point out that I'm not usually one to be completely, wholly negative about a piece of film, or really many pieces of entertainment media at all, especially when it comes to Star Wars. But regrettably, for me at least, The Acolyte is just that bad. There are no redeeming qualities about the show, or at least until episode 5, where we get the only tolerable episode of this entire series, which is not good. And remember what I said about passion, or rather the lack of it in The Acolyte? Well, I don't think there are many scenes or particular shots that exemplify it better than this one. Coruscant, referred to as the centre of the galaxy, the capital of the galaxy, and time on time again, it has looked spectacular in every Star Wars movie we've seen in the planet. And yet, in the Acolyte wants to be different because this is the Coruscant that we see. Just one flat surface with a big Jedi temple in the middle of it and buildings copied and pasted behind. It's so boring, plain and emotionless that at this point it's kind of embarrassing for Disney. But carrying on, we are in Coruscant and are introduced to Jedi Master Sol, or Guy from Squid Game. So Jedi Master Sol, or Guy from Squid Game, as some of you might know, is giving some lecture about eyes and connecting to the Force when she walks in. I'm sorry, I cannot get over what is going on here. You're a different species than an alien just if you paint your head green. Where is the effort going? This is a $180 million show. What is going on? Anyways, we learned that Jedi Master Sol, or Guy from Squid Game, actually used to be Osha's master, who left the Jedi Order a while back. And the rest of the episode is essentially just Sol talking and talking and talking, and finally putting together a small team to go track down Osha. And he, despite Osha looking extremely guilty for the murder of Master Indara, does not believe Osha actually killed her, because guess what? It was actually her twin sister. Get it? Get it? He's right, it wasn't her. It was her twin, Get it? But one positive, the team he does create to go track down Osha consists of probably the only character in this entire show who I genuinely like, and that is Jackie. Daphne Keane does a brilliant job in the role, and I do really like her character, which makes her death later in the series a lot more painful. Spoilers, by the way. Just completely forgot about telling you for spoilers. But yeah, Jackie does die. Moving back to our main protagonist, Osha and the ship she was in have crash landed on a nearby planet, and all the other inmates are gone. Not because they were unable to withstand such a crash, but because they had escaped beforehand. And that leads me to nicely onto a question which is so utterly stupid, I can't believe I need to ask it. How on God's good earth is it possible for a spaceship traveling through space at hundreds of miles per hour onto a planet to suddenly stop and crash full speed onto a planet and into a snowstorm, and the only person in said spaceship is able to survive solely because they had a seatbelt on, hundreds of miles per hour into the planet's surface? I mean, no kidding, wearing a seatbelt really does save your life. Take heed, kids. Continuing on, Jackie and Jedi Master Sol go and get Yord, who does not have a shirt on. Yeah, this scene is overall just like really weird and awkward. I'm not sure what the purpose of it is, other than, man, no top on, very funny, Also, by the way, this is the guy who thought that Anakin Skywalker destroyed the Death Star, so he shall henceforth be known as guy who thought that Anakin destroyed the Death Star. But in the end then, because I have had enough of this episode, and we are barely more than halfway through it, Jedi Master Sol, or guy from Squid Game, Jackie, and guy who thought that Anakin destroyed the Death Star arrive on Karlak, where Osha is. Osha, who is having visions of her twin sister May, is eventually found and saved by Sol, Jackie, and guy who thought that Anakin destroyed the Death Star. Yay! We also learn in between that time, May was Osha's twin sister, and guy from Squid Game saw her die. Although he changes his mind remarkably quickly, literally as soon as Osha says that May is alive. I mean, he goes from this
May is dead. Saw her die.
to this.
May is alive.
I believe you.
But finally, that is the end of episode. Oh no, for God's sake. We are not finished and are now with May. Why does this episode not end? We see May walking towards a mysterious figure in all black who is giving a monologue about Jedi, which might actually be the stupidest monologue of all time. We hear him say that attacking a Jedi with a weapon will fail, when we literally saw May kill a Jedi with a weapon 14 minutes ago. What is this crap? Did the writers even read the script when they thought this monologue? It's as if they just wrote a speech for the figure to speak to make him seem cool and edgy and hype us up, but not actually pay attention to what is being said, because like I said, it's just nonsense. And to finally end episode 1, we see the hooded figure draw out his lightsaber for literally no reason, but I can't be bothered having a go at that now as well. And that is the end, finally, to episode 1 of The Acolyte. An absolutely horrid start if you ask me, and it just gets more fun from here. So let's go to episode 2 of The Acolyte, Revenge/Justice. So, on to episode 2 we now go, and remember The Acolyte was actually a 2-part premiere, meaning this episode came out on the same date as episode 1. And while episode 1 may have been one of the worst opening episodes of a series, episode 2 is just as bad, but maybe just as slightly better, though not without a lot, and I mean a lot of faults. So we start episode 2 on a random planet called Olega, but this time we are with May, the evil twin sister, you know. So she very easily infiltrates a Jedi temple on Olega and is just sneaking around. I mean, come on, are you telling me they're not just anyone but a Dark Force user with an unbelievably high midichlorian count and pull in the Force would not be detected in a Jedi temple? Just the pure darkness radiating off her should be enough for the Jedi to realize that something is not right. But no, she just strolls through without an eye being batted her way. But despite that, May finds her way to a dark room where a Jedi sits levitating in mid-air. And this whole scene is actually somewhat ridiculous in a way that is absurdly funny. And it does not seem as if this scene is trying to make you laugh, but perhaps it comes off in a different way than intended to. Because May does that thing again.
Attack me with all your strength.
So, May then tries to murder this Jedi by punching, kicking, and slapping with all the force of a 2-year-old toddler throwing a tantrum because they didn't want to eat their morning Cheerios. Actually, that might be unfair on the toddler, it's much more frightening than May. Speaking of, May eventually gives up and leaves. Then we cut to Osha, who's talking to Jackie and... Oh, this is going to become a thing, isn't it? Osha and Jackie. Yeah, you just know it is. Anyways, this whole sequence with the guy who thought that Anakin destroyed the Death Star, Osha, Jackie, and Sol is pretty useless, other than that we know now that they're going to Omega to suspect a possible break-in there from May. Speaking of, we are back with May for some more mind-infuriating fun as she talks to a new guy called Chimia, whatever you want to say. And this scene is nothing short of idiotic. She needs a weapon to kill Tobin, even though there is a literal force field surrounding him, so how that's gonna work, I do not know. Secondly, she says, like I just said, that she needs a weapon. And if you recall to about 11 minutes ago in the series, the mysterious hooded figure who seems to be May's master said that you cannot kill a Jedi with a weapon. But, yeah, I guess that was just a bunch of crap since we've already seen a Jedi killed with a weapon, and now May is doing that same thing right now. Couldn't be surprised. And couldn't be surprised also that the Acolyte wasted a minute of our time with a full monologue, stupid monologue, which not only sounded nonsensical, but contradicted itself within 10 minutes of the next episode. Anyways, Camilla gives May a poison and we move back to Osha. So, the gang is on Omega talking to the Jedi about what happened, and it seems we are in for another fight scene because May is there at the exact same time, and no, that's not gonna work, May. Honestly, why is this idiot putting poison on the ground as if he's going to drink it? Oh, okay then. He did drink it, and Tobin is dead. What?
I don't understand.
So, the Jedi and the rest of the gang find him dead and decide to formulate a plan. Yod comes up with a plan but gets immediately dismissed by Jackie, who makes her own. And this may not be intentional, but it seems like we're supposed to be portraying Yod as a bit of an asshole and who thinks of himself better than May. But when you actually look at his plan, which got waved away for nothing, it was actually pretty good. And Jackie's didn't even work. And yeah, I'm calling him Yod again, not the guy who thought that Anakin destroyed the Death Star, because I do somewhat like his character, or at least more than everybody else's except for Jackie, because they're all just terrible. And the whole plot of this series, the storyline through all 9 episodes, is this mystery as to who that hooded figure form from episode 1 is, who May's master is. And somehow this is the one thing that they really needed to get right, that they also managed to mess up. Because, I mean, right off the bat, it is so obvious that the only real candidates are Camilla, or maybe the twins' mother, who we see in the next episode, and Sol is just like an outside option. So yeah, spoiler alert, Camilla does turn out to be the Sith in a huge plot twist, which we saw coming from a mile off. And he killed Jackie, so yeah, I really hate this guy. Now, let's look now though to the last 5 minutes of the episode as the Jedi spring a trap for May, who is ambushed by a guy from Squid Game, apparently the exact guy she wants to kill as well. I guess nothing short of humiliated by Sol in this fight. So we've seen May in 2 fights so far, one with Indara and one with Sol. And they just, seeing her fight on her own is just embarrassing. She's absolutely terrible at fighting. And all in all, she's had 2.5 fights because she had that really embarrassing fight with Tobin at the start of this episode. And she won on pure luck versus Indara, was toyed around with by Sol, who runs circles around her, and like I said, seemed to be fighting her own idiocy with Tobin. Doesn't make for a particularly good villain, does it? And now comes perhaps the most infuriating scene of this episode, as May, who is escaping, is found by Osha, and they look at each other for the first time in 16 years. And Osha has a stun gun in her hand, and all she has to do is shoot down her sister, who, need I remind you, is a murderer. It wouldn't even kill May, it would just stun her, and then the Jedi would be able to take her. But what does Osha do? Yeah, she actually misses. Why is she missing? It's a stun gun. It will not kill her, or even harm her. Whatever, I've had enough. So let's just go to the end of this episode where we see Kofa, where the Wookiee Jedi Kelnaka, who May wants to kill, lives. So we end episode 2 with a shot of Kelnaka and Kofa, and thank God, because that is the end of episode 2, the 2-part premiere. And it has been nothing short of disastrous. And now, on to episode 3, perhaps the most divisive piece of Star Wars since The Last Jedi, named Destiny. So, episode 3 of The Acolyte. This episode, well, I can tell you now, this is going to be interesting.
The power of
So we start 16 years earlier on some random planet called Brendok with young May and Osha.
As above sits the stars, and below lies the sea, I give you you, and you give me me.
By the same thread, a thread woven through all of existence.
No, not the Force, the thread. Which is literally just the Force, but I guess some different type of Force. I really don't know, nor do I care to actually find out. And I don't know why I haven't mentioned this before, but seriously, come on. You really think that these two twins, after 16 years of being separated, are still going to be sporting the exact same haircut as each other, in the exact same style as each other? It just doesn't make any sense, but nothing much does with this show, so whatever. So Osha doesn't actually want to do the ascension, which makes her a witch, but Maid does. But despite this, they start the ascension, and oh my god.
The power of
Oh my god, I am not even going to justify this with a response. Let's just move on. Now the Jedi arrive, and this is a choice the writers and people behind the show make, which is very interesting and annoying to me. Because essentially what we're doing here, what the whole crux of this episode is that the Jedi are evil. But that's just not right. That's not what Star Wars is about. Star Wars is a story of good versus evil, a tale of two halves, represented perfectly through the opposing blue and red lightsabers. And in the end, it comes off as nothing less than disrespectful to George Lucas and the Star Wars he created to portray the Jedi like this. And you can't counter that by arguing that the Jedi in Revenge of the Sith definitely weren't good, but really, were they not? Sure, a little complacency got in the way from the galaxy being safe for so long, though the Acolyte would like to argue that, but they were never evil. The Jedi were never corrupt like we are shown later in this season. In the Revenge of the Sith, in the original Star Wars movies, they were not evil. But continuing on though, the Jedi want Osha and May because they believe they have extraordinary powers in the Force, and after a little argument, the witches cave in. And in the end, what we learn is that Osha wants to be a Jedi, and May wants to be a witch and remain at home. May doesn't like this, presumably, because she doesn't want to be separated from her sister Osha, and so she says this.
I'll kill you.
What? These two have been twins their entire lives. Best friends, and suddenly because Osha does something May doesn't like, May threatens to kill her? What the hell? Who wrote this damn script? Anyways, May starts a fire by torching a book, and no, this actually does happen. She manages to set an entire stone fortress to the ground on fire because she's... What? How does this make any sense? You're telling me that if you start a fire with a book, you set a book on fire, an entire stone fortress can come down. I mean, physics, science, anyone? Basic common sense, anyone? Anyone? And somehow this one book manages to destroy the entire fortress, set the entire fortress alight. The entire fortress and every single witch inside. What the hell? But in the end, Sol, or guy from Squid Game, I really don't care anymore, he saves Osha, leaving May to die. Although we know she doesn't really want to. She doesn't really die. Now, I do want to say that a few things from this story do change when we see a different perspective in episode 7 from the Jedi's point of view, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But for now, we end episode 7 with Osha on the Jedi ship on the way to Coruscant, and we cut to May standing in front of the twins' favourite tree, and that is the end of the horrible episode 3 of The Acolyte. Perhaps the worst and most unitedly hated piece of Star Wars we have seen for a long, long time. So, episode 4, aka the most boring episode in this season if you ask me, because it is just one long walk through a CGI forest among other things. We open with Kelnaka, the Wookiee on Kofar, where the majority of this episode takes place, and we see drawings on the wall. You know, drawings on the wall. Yay. That's it. That's literally it. Then we go to Coruscant, which for God's sake still just looks so bland and boring. So, Osha is going to leave. She doesn't want to try and save May anymore after seeing her for the first time in 16 years. She says bye to Jackie, but literally half a minute later, Saul persuades her to stay. Oh yeah, I'm going to go now. I don't think I can do this for any longer. I just don't want to save May. She's evil and she's a murderer. It's not my problem anymore. I just can't do this. But she is your family. Well, damn it. I guess I'm going to have to stay. Alright, let's do this thing. That's literally how I imagine this conversation will go. That's how it happens. There's no argument from Osha, no trying to even give a reason to Saul. She's just like, well, I'm staying, I guess. You persuaded me. This is just one of the countless reasons why the show has no feeling of realism to it. Character motivations can change on a dime, and there's no consistency whatsoever. Saul said 6 words to her, basically just said that they're related, and Osha was like, alright, I guess I'm back now. But now to address the other elephant in the room, this guy. Yeah, that is who you think it is, Ki-Adi-Mundi. The guy who outright said that the Sith had been extinct for a millennium, which, if you recall, was a very big plot point in The Phantom Menace. The guy who was not born at the time this show takes place. The one guy you cannot have in this show because it breaks all the law already set down more than 2 decades ago. And you could say, oh, Ki-Adi-Mundi just lied to the Jedi, it's no big deal. No. No. You're telling me Ki-Adi-Mundi, a well-respected, well-known Jedi within the Order at the time of the Phantom Menace and in the Clone Wars, lied to the entire Jedi Council, including Yoda, all that time, when it was maybe very crucial information, really. And to just condemn this even further, the actual Wikipedia page changed the birth date for Ki-Adi-Mundi, because guess what? He wasn't even born at the time this show takes place. And that started a whole Twitter controversy of its own, but we don't need to get into that. Sorry. X, not Twitter. Apologies, Elon. Anyways, the gang is off to Kofar to find Kelnaka, because actually I kind of forgot why they went to find Kelnaka. So they walk through this beautifully fake soundstage forest, slice in half some bugs, and follow a beaver who smelt a Wookiee's underwear to find him.
You serious?
But it turns out that Kamia and May are also on Kofar trying to find Kelnaka. And then comes perhaps the stupidest bleeping part of this entire freaking show. Just listen to this. So May is tired from walking and decides to sit down whilst Kamia goes to get her some water. Then Kamia turns back and is caught in a trap that May sprung. For what reason? Well, May is tired from running and realizes that she doesn't need to follow through with whatever her master wants her to do. And so she decides to hand herself in to the Jedi. So you're telling me 16 years. 16 years of training, sacrifice, and obedience to her master mean nothing to me. She's finally completing the quest her entire life has been leading up to. Completing the quest her master has wanted her to complete for so long. And she just decides, no.
Son of a bitch!
Where is the consistency, the sense, anything in this show? We don't even get one reason why May is doing this. Only that she's tired from running. Let's just carry on, because guess what? Kelnaka, the character we were actually kind of interested in, the Wookiee Jedi, the character who this whole episode has been leading up to, is dead. And he died off screen as well, meaning we didn't see it, and this whole episode has been for nothing. Except it hasn't, because finally, after the mystery and suspense of the last 4 episodes, which we were really interested in, the mystery man, May's master, has arrived, looking all Kylo Ren-like with his helmet. And I do want to say, I do kind of like the design for his character, especially the helmet, though it does look a bit ridiculous in combat. But it does provide a certain bit of intrigue and fear with Smiler Ren over here. And we end episode 4 with the Jedi running towards the mystery man and him blowing them back with a cloud of dust. And that is the end of episode 4. Yes, it was the most boring episode we've seen so far, but it was a lead up to episode 5, just setting us up for the big reveal of the mystery man and for a big action episode. So let's get into episode 5 of the Acolyte Night. So episode 5 is a bit shorter episode because not really much happens other than a big lightsaber battle and May and Osha properly reuniting. We start with the Jedi and Smiler Ren, well, fighting. That's really all that happens for the majority of this episode, with little plot lines going on all around. So whilst the Jedi are fighting, May is seemingly trying to escape when she is apprehended by Jackie, and the two share what is honestly a pretty good fight. And that is one thing I have to give credit to the show for, and most critics of the show will probably admit freely, even if they want to or not, because most of the fight scenes in the show are brilliant. They're usually really cool, well choreographed, better than any of the lightsaber fighting we've seen from the recent shows or from the sequels by a mile. But wait until we get to the last episode and May and Osha fight. That's something else. And Jackie and May are fairly even in their battle, but what is slightly frustrating is how every time Jackie gets an upper hand, she starts trying to formally arrest her and everything. Although I do kind of get it, she is a Padawan and that's the way she's been taught to act in these kind of situations. But anyways, the fight continues until Jackie finally gets the upper hand and takes down May, which I did enjoy because Jackie is the only character who I actually like in the show. But then guess who arrives on the scene?
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
So now Jackie shares a huge duel with Smiler Ren and somehow is actually able to hold her own, almost beating him at points. Meanwhile, Yod and Osha, who are escaping, turn back around to go help. But in the end, it turns out to be just too much for Jackie, who manages to unmask Smilo Ren before being killed, 3 times stabbed as well. Nice to see that the lightsabers can actually kill you now in Disney Star Wars. But finally, the mystery man. Smilo Ren, the master, is unmasked, and it turns out to be Camille, the one who literally no one expected to be the master. Nope. No one. Absolutely freaking no one. After a bit of useless dialogue and back and forth, Camille comes out with this.
But the Jedi like you might call me Sith.
Son of a...
Hey, anyone remember when Kiadi Mundi said this?
The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
And perhaps even funnier than that is Camille himself saying this in the first episode.
Attack a Jedi with a weapon. You will fail.
Well, that was complete bull. Anyways, Camille kills Yod, and I would feel sorry for Yod, but, well, remember when he said this?
Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on, truly.
And this.
Look and see the Anakin blowing up the Death Star.
Anyways, in the end, Camille is carried off by some bugs. Before he leaves though, he says that Saul shouldn't be trusted, leaving Osha wondering. But May, the absolute coward, turns up and stuns Saul, and the twins meet again, which doesn't go very well. And then this happens.
What the fuck?
Seriously, so May cuts her hair with a lightsaber, and when Saul wakes up, he suspects nothing. Doesn't even sense that dark side, or something at least, is off with May. Sure, he's a bit dazed and dismayed after the loss of Jackie and Yod, but he really should have noticed something that May had at least, she swapped places with Osha and he didn't realize anything. But hey, wherever the script needs him, alright? And perhaps even more egregious than that, Saul walks off with May back to the ship and leaves every single dead Jedi behind. Just leaves them there for dead, even Jackie and Yod, who he clearly cared for. And why does he do this? Well, because of course, the plot requires it. Next episode, when Venestra and the other Jedi turn up, they see the bodies and suspect Saul. Again, the script needs it, so these Jedi who gave their lives fighting for good, killed by a Sith, won't even get a proper burial.
I hate my life.
But we end episode 5 with Camille, who finds Osha and takes her with him. And yeah, that's the end of episode 5, probably the best episode of the season so far, which is not much of a compliment because when I say that, all I really mean is that it's the least terrible episode so far. So now let's go to episode 6, Teach/Corrupt. So we start with Osha, who has been taken by Camille. And I wonder what planet she's on, the same one as before? Or maybe, I don't know, some Sith planet like Exegol from Rise of Skywalker. Or no, just unknown planet. Nice. And now we're back with Saul and May, and are you seriously telling me that this guy has not sensed something off with May? I mean, come on! Okay, what the going on in this episode? Oh, no, okay, we're still going on with this. Okay. No, not weird at all. And straight after this, Osha has his lightsaber to his neck. She's right there, able to kill this guy who has killed so many Jedi, who is pure evil. And yet one conversation with an odd sexual undertone and Osha seeing his dong is enough to just spare his life and do what he says. I mean, just imagine this conversation between Anakin and Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. Anakin, have you heard the story of Darth Camille, the ultimate Rizzler? Legend had it he could seduce Jedi, or former Jedi, with just a deep look in the eye and showing them his ass.
Yes, yes.
But elsewhere, the Jedi arrive on Kofar and find the dead bodies of the Jedi. Oh, and Green Bean over here has a purple whip lightsaber. Why am I not surprised? Saul also finally realizes the May is not actually Osha and he takes her captive. Now, how is May discovered? Well, it all starts with Basil the Beaver creature, who is in true slapstick comedy fashion, steps on May's foot and hip squirts some ink in her face. Star Wars in 2024, everybody, just an absolute joke. Speaking of, Venestra and the Jedi, after finding the dead Jedi bodies, suspect Saul was the killer.
Master Soul was responsible.
You serious?
Yeah, okay, I would take that with a pinch of salt, considering this is from the Jedi scared of his own Padawan raid. But we now get to the end of episode 6, back with Kamiya and Osha doing whatever the they're doing. And we end with Osha donning the helmet we've seen Kamiya wear all season long, you know, the smaller red helmet. Sorry, I still can't get over that. So, Osha puts it on, and we kind of get a mirroring of Darth Vader as we hear the breathing, which mirrors Vader's iconic mechanical inhale and exhale. Very unsubtle foreshadowing for Osha in the future, becoming most likely a Sith, or at the very least Kamiya's understudy or something like that. And that is the end of episode 6. And now on to episode 7, the most useless episode of this season, Choice. And you know what, I'm not even going to fully break down episode 7 because I'm telling you, it does not deserve it. All this entire episode is a replay of episode 3, but instead from the Jedi's perspective. It is completely useless and a waste of 40 minutes. So let's just go through the things that are different in this episode. So firstly, we learn that the Jedi were looking for something on this planet, a vergence in the Force, and accidentally stumble on Osha and May. Also, we learn that Tobin actually wanted to go home the entire time, and in the end, the crime that he committed was wanting to go home early, so he rushed to the witch's home and just things up. Probably more importantly, though, we see that Saul actually killed the twins' mother, not the Zabrak, the other one. What's her name again? I don't know, and I don't care. Also, the reason Tobin had this scar was from this night. And we're back to the whole Jedi a bad thing, because what we now learn is that the 4 Jedi actually made the whole thing a cover-up and blamed the death of the witches on May, burning down the entire fortress. So yeah, Jedi a bad again.
There is no good or evil, depends on what side you're standing on. True.
But now let's go to the final episode of this series so we can get this thing over and done with. And unfortunately, this is the longest episode of the show. So firstly, we start off with Osha right where we were at the end of episode 6, with Osha wearing Kamiya's helmet. And after a struggle, Kamiya manages to take it off her. Osha saw the future and knows that May can now kill without a weapon. So what does this actually mean? She's just extremely powerful and has power with the Force, I guess? I'm honestly really not sure. But it turns out that Saul and May are travelling to Brendok as well. And May is able to escape from Saul's clutches because of course she does. We have a little chase sequence as May tries to get away in an escape pod and Saul chases after her. And then for no reason at all, Basil, this little without any motive, sabotages Saul, ruining his chances of catching May. Well, what the heck? There was no reason to do that, seeing as he's supposedly on the Jedi's side. Well, why would he do that? But, oh well, the script needs May to escape, so here we are. And then, even worse than that, May crash lands on Brendok, going at hundreds of miles per hour into the ground, and somehow survives without a single scratch to her body.
Son of a...
But now, seeing as it's the last episode of the season, all the pieces are coming together, as Vernestra comes to Brendok, and so do Kamiya, Osha, Saul, and May. So Saul is on Brendok in the ruins of the Witch's fortress and meets Kamiya again, who is back to Smiler Ren, and it's time for another duel. Then we see May and Osha who start fighting as well, in perhaps the worst fight scene in all of Star Wars history. Yes, worse than a New Hope battle between Vader and Obi-Wan. I mean, sure, there's not much you can do with one actor having to fight themselves, but I mean, this is another level of terrible. But it all comes together at a head when Osha and May find their way to Saul and Kamiya, and Saul goes on a whole monologue about how Osha and May are the same.
And Osha are the same person. I don't know how your mother did it. With a virgins on this planet.
I don't know, maybe it's because you're the first coming of Anakin Skywalker or something. And that is something I wanted to mention quickly. If you didn't know, we actually get a momentary glance at what is supposed to be Darth Plagueis on this episode. And whilst it was a stupid introduction for such an important character in Star Wars lore, it does make way for a theory that Plagueis actually learned how to create life from nothing from May and
By the
Osha,
same thread.
or what the witches were able to
Thread.
do. Because there's also another theory that Plagueis created Anakin with Anakin's mother, and this could make way for that theory. But perhaps worse than that is how he's introduced, just as a silent, nasty little creature lurking in the shadows. But let's get back to the story. So Osha hears that Saul actually killed her mother and turns on him. Seriously? So she just killed her master, who she was Padawan to for years, who saved her from death all those years ago on Brendok, just like that? Hey, maybe seeing Kamiya's meat really did have a big effect on her. But now, Sol is dead and Venestra and her Jedi have arrived. So May, Osha and Camilla all escape, and in the end, May decides that she's going to stay behind for some reason. I really don't understand why, but hey, once again the script requests it, so who cares? But in the end, Osha and Camilla escape to be a happy Sith force-wielding couple, and May is captured by the Jedi. And again, the end of the series with Venestra and the Jedi covering up the whole ordeal is just another example of the Jedi being portrayed as a corrupt, villainous organization in the show, and it seems that Camilla and Osha, especially at the end of the series, are portrayed as being kind of writing the good characters. And you may argue that in the prequels the Jedi were evil, and I mentioned this earlier in the video, but the fact of the matter is they never were evil. Sure, after years and years of peace they became complacent and didn't adapt to the times, but they were never evil. They did what they did for the good of the Republic and the people, and simply they were held back by old traditions and a touch of arrogance. But they never were truly evil. But after everything, after eight episodes and 7 weeks of annoyance, boredom and stupidity, we have finally come to the end of The Acolyte.
We need to talk.
Believe me, you are not getting us hyped up with one shot of the back of Yoda's head. But yes, that is the end of Season 1 of The Acolyte. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that this show is nothing short of terrible. Along with The Rise of Skywalker, this is easily the worst Star Wars of all time. And the amount of rift it has caused in the Star Wars fandom cannot be underestimated. From Disney turning on the fans and blaming them for the Acolyte's poor performance, to the actors releasing diss tracks midway through the show because of how badly it was performing and how much they were getting bombarded, the Star Wars fandom and brand could not be in a worse position. And if this show does get greenlighted for a season 2, then I will confidently say Star Wars is finished, which to be honest, it might already be. But that's another question, another topic for another day, because that is the end of today's video. So thanks for watching, and make sure to tell me in the comments what you thought of The Acolyte. Make sure to subscribe and join the dark side. But yeah, that's all for today. Darth Sauron out.